M-O-R-G-A-N. I like games.
Sort of lurk in the darkness, and this quiet music being played somewhere.
Feel like the first video better, eh? Thanks, man. It's looking better, way better than it was before.
Hi, my name's Jason and I'm the curator of the Low Noise exhibition series. This is a series of exhibitions that I want to put together that give a chance for Wellington-based sonic artists to showcase their work, basically in the sound installation medium. The first one we did was 2 years ago at Parliament. We exhibited in the Bowen House exhibition space. Second exhibition now, Low Noise2, we're exhibiting at Toi Poneke art space at the top of Cuba. So my aim for this exhibition is to basically showcase these works and bring them outside of an academic circle. A lot of great work happens up at the New Zealand School of Music, and some of the time it stays up there and it doesn't get a chance, for the public to see it. So I'm really passionate about the work that some of these artists are doing, so I really want to bring it out into sort of mainstream culture a little bit more. Yeah. So the way I chose the artists for this exhibition, we're all coming through the Sonic Arts program at the New Zealand School of Music. But basically I wanted to choose artists that had a wide range of sort of backgrounds, and there's a lot of cross-pollination between art forms. Some of the artists have huge backgrounds in engineering and computer science, composition, and so all of these mediums together, I think, create a really interesting medium for people to see.
Hi, I'm Johnston. I'm currently studying my PhD at the New Zealand School of Music. So this is the Low Loops. So it's for a reel-to-reel player with a kind of extended loop that goes around the gallery and suspended speakers as well. And so the sound that's is being created is actually taken from a little burn piece from Soundscape with Lake and River. Which has been an excerpt that has been taken and kind of elongated for the piece, and the piece is for the duration of the exhibition itself. So over the time of the gallery, it will slowly decay and degrade pretty much. So the sound of the installation itself will slowly change over time. How does that happen? A couple of ways. So the tape itself. The quality of the tape will actually just degrade over time as it's fed through the machine, as well as the loops at the end. But another way that it's actually decaying is the magnets of the speakers, because the tape stores information via a magnetic layer. The magnets are actually kind of stripping information over time, so that's why it runs quite closely to the magnets. So yeah, over time it's going to start losing itself pretty much. The reason why I chose the Little Burn piece was because it's the 100th year anniversary this year, and because a big part of this piece is situating the age of the tape itself. So we've got this idea of kind of decaying and aging of the tape, as well as the reel-to-reel, because it's this kind of antiquated technology these days. It's kind of, the idea is to expose this and kind of celebrate the aging process itself. And so the Low Burn piece, because I've been studying at the New Zealand School of Music, there's a whole lot of ties to Low Burn at the school, like the studios themselves are named after him. And so it kind of just fit in that we were kind of celebrating his 100th year anniversary. And it's also a very, it's a piece that everyone kind of knows, at least, or some people will know at least. So it kind of evokes a few things.
I'm Paul Mathews, and I just recently finished a bachelor's degree in sonic arts at the New Zealand School of Music. I did a lot of works there focusing more on sort of performative aspects and using that as a format to kind of get across different ideas. But I always wanted to do more longer form type of stuff and more physical objects. So I was always interested in making stuff with my hands and sort of using that as a means to get a message across with something a bit more physical I like as a way to enhance the kind of concept and really reinforce the ideas that you're working with. So it was great to have an opportunity to do that for this exhibition. Using a physical object is a good idea, is a good way to reinforce like a concept in quite a solid way, because it's something people can really interact with, even if you're not touching it. It's something that really solidifies the ideas. So, I mean, the context of this work is a little bit removed from some of my other works in that I think it's similar to more fixed media works that I've done, in that all the sound material is focusing on field recordings and natural sounds. The field recordings themselves I actually just got out my bedroom window at my old flat on the terrace. But there's a good mix of this kind of bird sounds and a small amount of construction noises and traffic, which I was really working on getting that mixture between the natural sounds and then the kind of human encroachments into that and the more technological sounds as well. And that's kind of partially mirrored in the visual aspect, which doesn't include too much of natural, but we've got the wood and which is a kind of natural element, and then we've got the tinfoil, and the Raspberry Pi, which are kind of these very human kind of technological developments. And the kind of the really main concept behind the whole thing was more about kind of framing an environmental listening in a specific context, because when you're talking about environmental listening and soundscape listening, it's very hard to have a kind of start and an end point, and that makes it quite inaccessible to a lot of people. And so by literally putting it in a frame, it was kind of a pun, and also by putting it in this kind of gallery context where the interaction with the work is quite defined, it's kind of providing that framing for a natural sound. So this is a Raspberry Pi. It's just a small computer. Runs a version of Linux. It's probably slightly less powerful than an iPhone or something. Definitely less powerful than new ones. But it's really cheap, and I'm actually not using it to do very much. I could just as easily have plugged that into an iPod and set it on repeat. It's more or less just playing a sound on a constant loop. And as you can see, it comes out this audio cable. We've got some little piezo elements, also known as contact microphones, which are just soldered onto the end of the audio cable and taped to the back. So it just resonates the frame just a little bit, so you can hear it. It's quite a subtle sound. I can hear it quite well standing here right next to it, but you guys can probably barely hear it at all. Which is kind of what I was hoping for, because it's quite a subtle sound where I want it to be just enough that when you're looking at it and you're thinking in the context of this exhibition, you're thinking about listening to all of these words, that it draws you in, and you kind of, once you get close, you can just about recognize the sound, and that's the kind of degree of the interaction I was going for. So it's very hard to get a lot of volume out of the piezo microphones, but I think it's just about enough. So that's just a picture frame and some masking tape. It's actually quite a lot quieter now, it's not touching the wall. The fact that they are working by touch and vibrating the whole frame, which is touching the wall, which vibrates the wall just a tiny bit, does really make a difference in the density of the jib, the space behind it, all of that kind of plays into the overall, both the volume and the exact quality of the sound as well. The particular frequency responses from all the different things involved.
My name is Richard Robertshawe. I graduated from the New Zealand School of Music Sonic Arts Composition program in 2009 with honours. I suppose it was sort of a roundabout way of getting into the field. I think I started at jazz school many years ago, and then sort of, I don't know, it was found a little bit restrictive. It was like, but what about that stuff? Just like pushing it a little bit further. I suppose actually, like part of the sounds that occur within this is sort of made me realise it's kind of why I started doing stuff like this anyway. Like it was like kind of the tingy little like delicate noises, it's just like, I don't know, kind of drew me to it. The work is called ASMR Study Number 1, Brain Sparkles. So I was listening to, I believe it was This American Life podcast, and they were talking, I think it was an episode about tribes, and it was about this one woman who I think just was like trolling YouTube one day and found these really weird YouTube videos of people who were whispering, and she didn't really understand what was going on. And then she realised that there's like this whole internet community of people who sort of, when they listen to small, delicate noises, sort of feel tingly. And so there's like this whole community where you sort of like make videos and listen to these videos, all based on like this sort of slightly good feeling they get from like hearing really close mic to things, or like really, really delicate noises. And so she didn't realise that this was actually a thing, and then once she looked into it, it was like, oh, I get that feeling. I suppose I'm part of this community now, so she felt like she belonged to part of that tribe that she sort of discovered by the internet. I thought it was pretty interesting. And then I realised that it's kind of what I'd been listening to in recordings for years. Like, I really like the sound of like singers when you, like they're really close mic, you can just like hear all of like the, it's like, I really liked recordings of that, and it's like, oh, I didn't know that was not a thing. Like, I didn't know people didn't listen to that. So I sort of, looked into it a little bit more. And I suppose this is about trying to recreate that feeling. I mean, there's a certain difficulty in trying to like translate an individual perception to another person, right? It's like, what does your blue look like? It's not really something that translates. It's like, do you feel the brain sparkles? So, I don't know, I tried as hard as I could to just like accumulate as many of those sounds as I could. And sort of, I suppose, put in a bit of a visual metaphor for it as well. It is these little piezo drivers. They can be used either as a microphone, like a contact microphone, or as like a buzzer. And like, I don't know, they used to use them in phones for buzzers and things like that. If you're looking for hi-fi sound, they're not the thing to buy, but they're really good at really like low volume, high frequency noises, which is exactly what I was looking for. And so if you touch them to like a resonating body, they'll obviously resonate the body, so it sort of changes the character of the sound slightly. It was originally going to be a 4-channel work, but as things transpired, it was easier just to sort of work on it with headphones and then like do like a, they call it binaural recording, like 2 ears. So I did it for that and just connected up the 4 speakers as though they were 2. The source material is just, it's just a fixed media thing. It is a little bit piano, really close mic. I got a big Neumann shotgun mic, so I was just close micing things way too close just to try and like bring up the tiniest details. So there was like a lock and a key, some coins, some piano, some small electronic glitches. Anything that makes like small, delicate, high frequency noises. I think it's one of those things that, like, to get the feeling, like, I kind of want it to feel a little bit claustrophobic in a sense. So the close miking was obviously the way to, like, as soon as you add a reverb or something, then it's like sounds way bigger than it is. So I sort of wanted to feel like it was in your head in a way. Yeah.
So my work behind me is called Black Series. So there's the first 4 panels of what I see being a larger work. And this work for me, I think in some ways was a reaction to a lot of the academic work I was doing while I was studying, where I really focused on heavily on conceptual things, and I was working a lot with loudspeakers. That's what I did my study in, and I was working with objects that I couldn't manipulate physically, and I was really stuck working with these objects in a very confined way. And after I came out of university, I began to really compartmentalize my thought process in terms of making art, in terms of making works. And this piece, I really wanted to take a holistic view of all the things I was interested in, so sound and visual art, and try some way to create a piece that had not all of those influences in there, but just allow myself to stop that compartmentalization and bring things together a bit more. So for this work, I really wanted to work with malleable materials, you know, wood and clay and paint, and really work with my hands and be able to shape things a bit more rather than like a loudspeaker, which is just an object which I can't change. So this piece has 4 panels. On each panel there's 4 piezo speakers. They are small speakers that emit high frequencies. You find them in your cell phones and stuff like that. They're emitting high frequency sine tones, and below those are full frequency speakers which are emitting a low frequency. So there's a soundtrack playing through that, which I was inspired to create by listening to some of John Cage's number pieces, especially 7/2, which had a lot of, I was inspired not particularly by the instrumentation or anything, but by the use of space he had. He's got a lot of silence in that piece, and a lot of, it's a long piece, it's about an hour, so there's a lot of fluctuation, and just the patience and the silence within it. Those qualities I tried to concentrate on, focus on, and replicate somehow, because when I would listen to that piece, I felt a shift in my thought process or something like this. So along with the visual element of the work, I wanted to create something that people could experience and maybe experience a similar shift.
I'm Timothy Barraclough, and I'm a sonic artist / engineer. I kind of fell into this field after bumbling around. I didn't really know what I wanted to do after high school, and so I studied a whole bunch of different things at university, and then I finally found my calling with music. So I completed an undergrad in sociology, philosophy and music, and then went on to do a postgrad diploma in sonic art, and now I'm completing a Masters of Engineering. And despite the fact that these fields may seem quite far apart, I think they're really related, at least in my mind now. I think that kind of gives me a unique perspective on how I create artworks and installations. So my piece is called Sick, with a C and a K in brackets. And it's about this idea of echo chambers, the way that kind of ideas get filtered through receptacles before they bounce out the other end. And originally it was supposed to be kind of a metaphor for like media echo chambers, which you have quite a lot with political media. But I think it extends further and to the way that we kind of make judgments, or define our values about the world, where we receive information, it kind of bounces around in our head and we filter it in different ways. And I think it's exciting to talk about because it's not necessarily about the message in the end, it's about that kind of process of how it gets filtered. And so with this work, the idea is that an original message gets filtered through a feedback system, which is the reverberant space itself. So I've got a little Raspberry Pi computer on the roof, and it's running Pure Data. and it's just playing some sound files through these little speakers, and then there's contact mics on the surface of the glass which pick up that signal and run it through a delay, and then feed it back out through the speaker. And that's how you get like these nice drones, and the kind of glass texture comes out of it. The glass itself actually hanging vases I picked up from a DIY wedding store. But it's just because I was hunting for kind of nice glass that I could hang and try and get some nice reverbers from. So on one of the speakers I have, on both the speakers I have a 1960s radio broadcast. But the source material is different for each one, and one of them is a broadcast about that is kind of littered with ads for cigarettes and alcohol and all that kind of stuff, little jingles. And on the other one, there's a guy talking about what it means to be alive in a kind of agnostic sense. Like, what is our purpose here? I like that kind of contrast between something kind of facile and something that's trying to be deep, but then inevitably it gets crushed by this kind of feedback system and loses all semblance of meaning.
Zareei, and I'm a PhD student at Victoria University of Wellington. I'm really interested in noise and basically sonic byproducts of, everyday life. So as part of my PhD, I'm basically working on these sound sculptures, building an ensemble of these things that use little noisy machines inside, our everyday devices. To basically make sound, but like in their everyday context, these things are basically their sonic aspect is kind of a byproduct. It's not needed, so it's unwanted or not interesting. So I'm trying to make them interesting by basically highlighting them in these sort of sculpture formats and controlling their noise rhythmically and timbrally. And this is one of the series of instruments that I've been working on. It's called Motor, and it's basically the primary sonic output of it is based on the sound of a DC motor, just a regular 12-volt DC motor, and I control it using a microcontroller programming, and it's located in a box. So I've also control over the basically there's like a pivoting door that I can basically control using that linear actuator, so I can modulate the sound of the motor inside the box, creating some sort of a kind of a wah-wah effect. I always really liked glitch music. So basically glitch music is a genre of electronic music where musicians, sound artists, they focus on noisy or like digital errors that happen within the digital realm. They basically use these unwanted sounds and basically regulate them somehow and organize them and make music with them. So I was always really interested in that. And then when I was studying at Cal Arts before I moved to New Zealand, I met Trumpin, who's probably one of the most significant forerunners of kinetic sound sculpture. And I kind of got to know his work and his kind of loudspeaker-free, like physical sound art, where you basically make sound using sound objects. So that was pretty inspiring. And then, so I tried to kind of fix my focus on basically his method of okay, basically I try to fuse these two inspirations, so that glitch music and this physical way of making sound art. So this is pretty much, so the sonic byproduct of the physical technologies around us, you know what I mean, instead of digital in the glitch music. So my work basically focuses on these little unimportant noises of technological devices surrounding our everyday life. So basically, so when I was looking into noise, I looked at Luigi Russolo's work. He was basically this guy, this Italian guy who came up with this futurist manifesto that in like early 1900s, he was like, oh, let's celebrate the post-industrial revolution noise. So he built a series of these noise-making machines. Well, in my first instrument, I was kind of inspired by his noise machines. It was like a remodeling sort of version of his noise intoners. But then in that, like, so it was basically, there was a mechanism there. But then in that quite basic noise-making mechanism, there were like still sounds that were actually not directly related to that sonic output that I wanted. So they were also like within the noise context, there were still noise stuff happening, or like byproducts. So in my second instrument, I was using basically two of these solenoids to just amplify that actuation noise of these solenoids using a metal sheet. So they were attached to a metal sheet, and so the actuation noise was kind of transduced using that sheet of metal. And the third one is basically, it's kind of like going one level lower. It's basically just the sound of a DC motor itself, with basically minimum modification. It's just sitting in this box. Basically, I'm trying to like focus and kind of highlight its presence as physical, because in the everyday context, these things are just hidden inside box. They're not important. Their sound is not important. It's not wanted. But here, I'm trying to like basically stress on their very physical presence. So the only thing that's been modified is just the tone of the motor buzzing, and then it's just the timbre using that pivoting door. So it kind of like goes sort of into a more reductionist format within the whole series, from the first one to this last one.